Before this episode begins, I'd like to say that I will be heading to DinoCon UK on the 25th and 26th of July in Birmingham. So if you see me wandering around in my podcast t-shirt, come and say hello. I have bookmarks and pin badges to give away as well. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll see you there.
You'd think, well, how many islands are there?
I always think of the line from Jurassic Park 3 with Udesky, and he says, there's 2 islands full of dinosaurs? Now we've got to sort of edit that into 3 islands full of dinosaurs.
If only he'd known.
Hello, and welcome back to Road to Rebirth. I'm Roland Squire. Today I'm looking at the creators of this new Jurassic adventure, screenwriter David Koepp and director Gareth Edwards. To help me is a film critic, journalist and author who has been definitely immersed in the Jurassic franchise for a few years now. Please welcome to the podcast, James Mottram. Hi James, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. So people listening to this podcast will definitely know you from your now 3 Jurassic books, looking at the 2 trilogies and also the script book. I was wondering how it was for you diving so deep into the world of Jurassic. Have you managed to come out yet?
Well, in a way I have, because, God, I'm having to even think when the last of those was finished. Feels like maybe 2022, maybe 23. Because I've done a couple of books since then. One on Gareth's last film, Gareth Edwards' last film, The Creator. I did a book on the latest Godzilla Kong film. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I have had a little time away from Jurassic. So forgive me if I'm a little hazy on certain names.
No.
That's just my terrible memory more than anything. But yeah, the Jurassic sort of project was really a pandemic thing, because I'd worked for the publisher on some other books, and then the pandemic hit. And I remember saying I'd just finished doing a book on Tenet, the Christopher Nolan film. And I just remember saying, look, if you've got any other ideas, now is the time to get me, because the cinemas are shut and I don't have a lot of work on. And he suggested the first Jurassic book I did, which was the ultimate visual history for Jurassic Park, so covering the first 3 Jurassic movies. And then it was kind of quickly decided that I think if I remember rightly, the initial idea was to have 5 films, as it was at that point, in one volume, I think. And then it became quite clear, I think it was even Colin Trevorrow's idea that was sort of fed back to the publishers, to have the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World as 2 separate books, which makes complete sense, of course. And then the script book came afterward, which was actually my favourite of the 3, perhaps because it was slightly less traumatic to put together, because there was probably less detail needed to complete it. But I always kind of point this out to people, because I was like really happy to get hold of Malia Scotch-Marmo, the woman who, of course, wrote a draft of the first Jurassic and hasn't really spoken about it a great deal,
not at all,
beyond that incredible making of book that was produced at the time of the first movie. And I kind of sort of tracked her down. It took quite a while to get her to sort of talk, and I think we sort of did it via email in the end, but she gave me some great answers. And, I hate using the word scoop in sort of journalism, but I kind of felt like that was a pretty cool thing to have in that book, because she just hasn't talked about her experiences and did to me. And so, that was kind of one of my favorite experiences writing this book.
Amazing. The interviews that you conducted, did you get to speak to all of the main cast? And
I think I did. I'm trying to think if there were a couple of people that didn't want to do it. Probably shouldn't name them.
No.
But let's see. I mean, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff, I did all of them while they were kind of preparing for Dominion. So they were all in England. They were all stashed in this hotel where they were all kind of like shielding effectively. It was kind of useful in a strange way, the pandemic, because
at least you know where they are.
They were trapped, And so I got all of them, I think, in relatively short succession. Bryce Dallas Howard was done around that time. Chris Pratt took a lot longer, but I did get him in the end. And then it was really a case of sort of picking up just the sort of supporting actors where you could. I mean, Justice Smith, I remember, again, took a while, but once I got him, he was great.
I was wondering, so you said about Colin and being like involved in that, maybe that decision to split it into 2 books. He seems like, when he was first announced as the director of of Jurassic World, he spoke very much as from a fan perspective. Did you get that from him when you spoke to him, that he was a fan of these films?
I guess. I suppose by the time I got to him, I had actually interviewed him and Chris Pratt for Jurassic World just for a newspaper I was working for at the time. So I guess by the time we came back, I think we did a couple of chats about Dominion and Jurassic World, and he was very, very available. That much I can remember.
Okay.
Like, he was very happy to talk. Sometimes you get directors, obviously they're in the midst of cutting the film.
Yeah.
They're embedded in the film. It's probably hard for them to even articulate what they're doing because they are in the middle of doing it. He knew exactly what he was doing, and I think he understands. I think he is a fan. He understands what the fans want.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, back on when I saw Jurassic World. So this was some time before, whatever it was, 5 years before the first book project came around.
Yeah.
I just remember being so elated by that film because it's what all the fans wanted, i.e. the theme park finally open and functioning. And that's why that film works so well. It kind of fulfilled all those dreams that you had ever since you saw the first movie where the theme park doesn't get to open. So I think he understands what the fans want innately.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the sort of choice of dinosaurs along the way. I mean, bringing the Spitters back for Dominion, for example. I mean, you can argue, is that fan service? Perhaps a bit like bringing back the legacy characters.
Yeah.
But let's face it, most franchises have done that.
Yeah.
Star Wars did that.
Yeah.
And it was good to see Neil, Dern and Goldblum back kind of riffing on their old personas on some level. So, I think he is approaching it as a fan for sure.
And also, I just need to give a little shout out to Derek Davis as well, who I think helped you with the script book. In how did that come?
Well,
about?
That's an interesting journey because Derek reviewed the first book for a website I use quite a lot that he works for, because they had all the scripts, like the kind of original drafts of the script. Were uploaded into that website. And then when the second book came out, someone at the publishers said to Derek, would he host a sort of Q&A with me and one of the concept artists, Glenn McIntosh? And that was great. And that's kind of when I got to know Derek, and we started talking after that. I mean, he is a fount of knowledge. He blast my Jurassic knowledge out of the Jurassic Park. But and he's got lots of sort of concept art, and he could have written that book, frankly, the script book, quite easily. I think I just sort of went to the publisher and said, well, look, can we just use him to sort of run the draft by and make suggestions and things, and he was brilliant for that. So absolutely shout out to him.
Yeah, great. So I'm right in saying that you've already seen Rebirth
today. In fact,
yes.
I also went on a post-production visit to Abbey Road Studios where they were scoring the film at the time. So outside of the trailer, that was the first time I saw any footage. I mean, it's just being played up on screens while the sort of this, I think it was 105-piece orchestra were being conducted by Alexander Desplat. So that was pretty thrilling as well.
Yeah, so I haven't seen the film, so this discussion will be completely spoiler-free.
So you probably know quite a lot, though, that's in the public domain already, because I think they've been fairly free with details. They haven't shrouded it in complete mystery.
No, I think it's although I do think it's a lot better than Fallen Kingdom and Dominion's marketing campaign.
I generally try not to pay too much attention to trailers. I had seen the trailer once or twice, and like I said, I saw bits and pieces very randomly at Abbey Road, so there was no way of connecting the dots at that point as to where things ended up. They were all action sequences, but you couldn't really tell how the film was structured as such. And even what the people I've interviewed, I've spoken to Gareth on that post-production visit, and David Koepp I've also spoken to, while they sort of told me the basic premise as to what the reason they go to this island, which I think is probably pretty much in the public domain now. Beyond that, yes, the structure of it, let's say, it wasn't particularly clear.
Which is nice for me as a fan. It's nice to think of going in and watching it, not blind, but just to take in the story.
Okay, here's the thing I want to ask you, because I was thinking about this today. I guess now, if we consider all 7 films and you added it up, there's got to be 5 pretty much set on an island. I mean, half of Fallen Kingdom, most of the Lost World, and then the first, the first, third, and fourth, and now this one. So it's an island setting again, of course, as probably everyone knows by now. But I must admit, when I heard that, I was kind of like, really? Another island? Especially as Colin had done the work by getting the dinosaurs into the world. So I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical at first, thinking, well, are we just going to be retreading, another island story? And yet you have to admit that the best Jurassics have all been on the island, an island.
Yeah, I think that, and reading bits in your book and conversations with Steven Spielberg, he was very reluctant to do any of the dinosaurs getting off the island when he was doing Jurassic Park, even the bits that are in Michael Crichton's novel about the raptors getting out. And in Jurassic Park and The Lost World, the novels by Michael Crichton, they're clearly on the mainland of Costa Rica. It's almost like you can imagine living your life as we are now, and somewhere out there could be this forgotten land where dinosaurs. I think that's the magic, I think, that Spielberg's always trying to get to, is that you could accidentally be one of these people that stumbles across this island.
Yeah, and there's a certain contained terror being stuck on an island in the middle of, the Pacific or whatever, or the Atlantic, and there's no real escape. I mean, there would be if a helicopter comes along or something, but you know what I mean? You can't easily hide. No. And it does work for a setting. But obviously they couldn't redo the theme park idea again. Clearly they wouldn't do that. It's been done twice in different ways, let's say. But it does work as a setting. Yeah. So I was skeptical, but I was sort of very pleased the way it kind of worked out.
I'm skeptical of the fact that it's a new island. That's maybe the one bit that I'm like, I can't quite get because we've already got Isla Sorna and Isla Nublar has been destroyed, and now we're on a new island, supposedly.
Yeah, so I was a little bit like, well, hang on, why didn't they just go back to Isla Sorna? Because that's meant to be the sort of breeding ground.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure what you know about what's on the island specifically. So
only that there's some. Yeah.
do you know anything that's on the island particularly?
Only the shot from the trailer of the lab. I'm imagining that's at some point of maybe an inciting incident of the film.
Yeah, there's obviously some sort of research facility, let's say, on the island. There isn't really much more to know than that, but apart from the fact they've been doing some things, some stuff. We'll say that. We'll be vague. Yeah, I kind of did think, well, how many islands are there shoved out there?
I always think of the line from Jurassic Park 3 with Udesky, and he says, there's 2 islands full of dinosaurs? Now we've got to sort of edit that into 3 islands full of dinosaurs.
If only he'd known, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So why do you think David Koepp has now... Because he's done some script work for Jurassic Park 3 and Dominion, is that correct?
Yeah, well, I actually asked him this when I interviewed him. I said, would it be fair to say that even if you're not credited, officially credited, you've been involved with all of them on some level? Like, let's say a draft of the script has been passed to him just for him to offer notes on. And he said yes, basically. So in one capacity or another, he's looked at one of the, a draft of all of the films. That doesn't mean his notes are taken on board, but, he's as, Spielberg's the godfather, then he's kind of a Jurassic. He's like the great uncle, really. I mean, he's alongside, say, Frank Marshall and obviously Kathleen Kennedy. He's just been involved from the beginning. So why wouldn't you get his opinion if he's willing to give it? And which, of course, he's an extremely warm and generous individual and clearly is happy to offer his experience. But this is the first time he's officially been back, I guess, since The Lost World, in terms of, in terms of being the sole writer.
Yeah. I wonder what really drew him back to it.
Well, I kind of think he took a call from Spielberg. Spielberg basically just said, do you want to do you fancy batting some ideas around? Do you want to get involved? So they spent a few months literally just batting ideas back and forth. And then at what point, I'm not sure they had the conversation about Koepp actually being the screenwriter, but I guess that was probably fairly early on. I think the thing is, I remember him saying is that part of the process where you just he and Stephen are batting ideas back was the loveliest part of the process, because, you're starting with a blank page. Yeah. The sky's the limit. Your imagination is the limit. I know he said, and I'm not really sure how this plays out in the final film, and if you can tell me when you see it in case there's something I missed when I watched it, but the Spielberg sort of early idea was that a mosasaur would be kind of terrifying, kind of fishing grounds, and sort
Okay.
of like swallowing up, the kind of the fish that are there. I don't think that's really in the final film, but that was a sort of it was quite an early idea to have that creature in the
In the
story, which
film.
it
Yeah.
very much is. How
Yeah.
quickly they developed the other ideas, I'm not sure, but it was obviously over a few months. And I kind of think when you've got Spielberg coming to you and saying, "Do you want to just sit and brainstorm?"
Yeah.
You would really, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I was just so amazed that Rebirth came around so quickly after Dominion.
Yeah, I mean, I was stunned, really. I mean,
Yeah.
not stunned because Dominion crept over $1 billion, it was crazy the way, I don't know if you paid attention to the box office of that film, but it was like, I don't know, about 999,000, and
Yeah.
they kept it in the cinemas long enough
Yeah.
so it could just make it over a billion,
Yeah.
which it did,
Yeah.
which is incredible, really. And which mean all three of the Colin produced written films made it, in that incredible ballpark figure. So I guess, they probably thought, well, look, the fandom is as strong as ever, which it is. I mean, that's one thing I've truly realized writing the books. I don't think I was, I enjoyed the films, but I wasn't as plugged into the fan community as I imagine you are. But now I am fully aware of how strong that community is. It's alongside Star Wars in terms of the kind of mania for it and the love of it, and the numbers prove it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not surprised they bankrolled another one quickly.
Yeah.
I was surprised everyone kind of jumped on board and said, well, let's, that Spielberg and David Koepp just said, right, let's get it out there. And then the fact that it's come round so quickly, because I think Gareth wasn't really announced until February last year.
Yeah.
They didn't finish shooting, I think, until September. I know that the score, that Alexander, the composer, didn't see the score, or she didn't see a rough cut until December. I mean, that's crazy speed to put a movie at that scale together with that many visual effects as well.
Yeah.
Amazing that they've done it. Yeah, that is in itself remarkable. But sometimes, Gareth did say, sometimes that is, as hard as that is on the body and the mind, you don't second guess yourself. You just go on your instincts. And,
exactly. Yeah.
When you've got a long time to think about films like that, it's, I don't know, maybe she started second guessing herself and things don't quite work out. But he really was clearly running on instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's how the best films are sort of made, really. That's in the 70s. That's how big all, the blockbusters started, really, was that sort of run and gun mentality, just having these big, crazy ideas and just literally just going out and filming them. So I'm glad that it's had a time limit set on it. And just like, this film is coming out on this date, it's not moving, this film has to be done. And, you can either sink and swim, but I think the amount of people, the star power of the cast, but also the people behind the camera is just so big that, it's just so, pedigree is so good, I think. I don't think I've spoken to anybody where they're like, I'm a little bit worried about the time. Everybody's got a lot of faith in people involved.
Well, I think, as we've obviously been saying, you've already got someone who's deeply embedded in the franchise, i.e. David Koepp. Obviously, you've got Spielberg sort of pumping in ideas as well. And then they found the perfect director. There is absolutely no doubt they chose the best director right now to who hasn't directed a Jurassic before to do it. And I mean, Gareth, he'd already done a kind of Jurassic movie with Godzilla, let's say, in a different way. He produced one of the best Star Wars movies, albeit a sort of spin-off, a pre-Star Wars set movie, one that's then inspired Andor, the TV series as well. So, he was obviously heavily involved with that. I think The Creator was one of the great unsung movies of the last few years. He was very unlucky when that came out during the actors' strike, I think, but, that's a separate issue. The guy's got imagination, talent. He knows, he understands he was totally inspired by Spielberg anyway as a kid.
Yeah.
He soaked all that stuff up for years, and he just understands what makes these movies tick. So, I was delighted when I heard he was doing it, because I just thought, well, that is a perfect combination of elements. And then, from what I'm led to believe, Scarlett Johansson, obviously, who's the lead as Zora, she is a massive Jurassic fan. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to give a great performance just because you love the franchise. But we all know she's a great actress, and she's handled big scale fare before in playing Black Widow, of course.
Yeah.
So she can do that sort of stuff, and she's also a very solid actress.
Yeah.
And I think that really shines through. So yeah, if you just literally just pick those three elements, i.e. writer, director, and lead actress, all being kind of perfect, it's like, well, you're already in a great place.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your take on? Did you see Monsters when it first came out?
I did, and I liked it very much. Obviously, I had no idea who Gareth was.
No.
I can't remember where I saw it. If I saw a screening or if I saw like it on DVD or something, I just don't remember. But I do remember being very impressed with it. Strangely, and I won't go into it, but there's a scene in the Jurassic World Rebirth that reminded me a little bit of Monsters. Monsters as I remember it, it's been a long time since I've seen it now. It's not really about, carnage or anything of that sort. It's quite a beautiful film in places.
Very much
and
so.
I think there's some real elegance in this Jurassic film as well, which hopefully you'll appreciate when you see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I rewatched Monsters this morning because I was just I want to watch all of the films before going to see the new one. And it is just now knowing that he's directed this one, it's just full of Jurassic Park references, kind of the visual language of it's all set in Central America, giant fences. There's also a set where the monsters attack two cars and there's shots from within the car, which feels just exactly like the T-Rex scene. Just watching that and then knowing that his next film was going to be Godzilla, who else would you choose? If you're handling Godzilla, there's nobody else that you would give it to if you look at his filmography, or just that one film, to be honest. And the fact that he did all those visual effects work himself.
Well, that's it. He understands visual effects. That's the background he came from. And that's quite rare for a director to be that up on it, to be aware of what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, there's a certain, I don't know, poetry to his work, I think, as well. I mean, not just in Monsters, definitely in Monsters, but in something like The Creator as well. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the Central America thing as well, because I remember he said when they were talking about where to film a Rebirth, the suggestions were either Costa Rica or which obviously has associations with the Crichton books. It was either Costa Rica or Thailand, and obviously Thailand is where they went. Yeah. But he shot in both Thailand for The Creator and Costa Rica for Monsters. So strangely, he knew both landscapes very, very well. And that counts for something, I think. Obviously, as we said, he's ultimately gone to Thailand. And, I'm sure he had incredible location scouts as well to help him. But you just get the sense he really understands the beauty of that world and that location. Obviously, it's not meant to be Thailand. It's meant to be this secret island, as we've been talking about or alluding to. But yeah, I think that really helped as well, that he was familiar with those landscapes. It just seems to be really embedded in Rebirth.
Do you think there's a common threads that run through his films in that sense?
That's interesting. I mean, there's a sort of Spielbergian childlike wonder, I guess, with the world around us and possibly, the world above us, whether even if it's a fictionalized version. I mean, he has a huge imagination. He obviously loved science fiction, fantasy, and maybe it's not quite the right word, but yeah, I think, he's obviously interested in technology and things that can go wrong, mankind's hubris, I suppose. Yeah, I'd say those are the sort of key things.
Yeah. I also quite like his characters. That there's a lot of people have said that the character of Aaron Taylor Johnson in Godzilla is a little bit one note, but I rewatching Monsters this morning, I think all of his main characters are sort of outsiders. Everybody he likes to be dealing with are kind of rough around the edges, but they're all driven with this sort of moral, the kind of morality for the greater good, as such, of doing something for the betterment of other people.
That's interesting, because that, again, without venturing into spoiler territory, some of those elements you've just picked out do tie into Rebirth as well, and the reasons they're going to this island and what they're trying to do, and whether do you know, so before I give anything away that I shouldn't be giving away, do you know what they're going to the island for?
For the DNA of the three largest species, I think.
Yeah, but do you know,
to help? It's something to do with heart disease.
Yeah, that's right. It's coronary sort of disease. So it's about, whether they, a pharmaceutical company will make billions, trillions from that, or whether it should be perhaps not chargeable, as it were. It should be available for science. It should be available for all. I think is a quote in it. So it's kind of touching on the same topics, I think.
Yeah, interesting. And I like also the fact that his films feel quite classic in their storytelling. They're quite streamlined, which I think is lacking sometimes in modern blockbusters. Again, with Monsters, it feels like it's essentially, it happened one night, but with like giant aliens. Like this billionaire's daughter is having to be taken across the country, not by Clark Gable, but by Scoot McNairy to return, and they obviously fall in love on their way. But even they're traveling in like the big buses that, like the big American buses through South America. When they said about the storyline for Rebirth, it felt like it's just back to basics sort of idea. This is how these films work the best. And
I mean, Ket definitely said that he obviously wrote the first two. That's the tone that he understands, and that's what he wanted to get back to. I mean, I don't know. Do you think the Colin Trevorrow overseen trilogy, let's say, because he was kind of involved in all the scripts, wasn't he? And then
very much, and
obviously directed two and kind of produced them all, so on and so forth. It's his trilogy as much as Spielberg or anyone else's. But do you feel the tone is very different to the Park movies?
I think he's got amazing ideas, Colin, and what he wanted to put into those films. I think probably for me, Fallen Kingdom is my favourite of those, because I think it takes the biggest swings. Plus, I'm a big horror fan, and I like J.A. Bayona, and I think watching it again, there's a lot of subtle comedy and digs, and the kind of extra characters that are in there, like having the guy from Silence of the Lambs as
Ted
being
Levine. His death is one of the best deaths in any of the movies. But that's because Ted Levine's a fantastic actor.
Yes, yeah. And even like there's what's he called, Peter Jason, who I think recently died, who's like an actor from lots of B movies in the 80s and stuff, and he's in that film. And just think, the people that you've chosen for this to actually do these very small parts, but if you know who they are, it's a knowing wink to what film you're trying to make.
Toby Jones as well.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, he's always very good value.
Yeah.
It's funny. Fallen Kingdom was the one I liked the least, strangely, of those. I mean, I love Jurassic World. I mean, I've grown to appreciate it more since working on the book. But again, when we were talking about what works best, like in terms of an island setting, so in a way, the house that the second half of Fallen Kingdom is set on, it essentially is the island, but to me didn't work quite as well. But I do see the sort of, the gothic intent of having that as a house. And like you said, if you're a horror fan such as yourself, you'll probably get more out of it. It didn't quite work for me. I really liked the bit in Fallen Kingdom on the island with the sort of the lava explosion, and there are some cracking scenes in that. But the house didn't quite do it for me personally. But I know people that like it. So
I think my issue with the three world films is the speed at which they move at. Whereas if you look at Jurassic Park, even Jurassic Park 3, even though that film's an hour and a half, there are moments where the characters can stop and talk and discuss and actually flesh out rather than just giving exposition. I'm thinking of like the lunch scene in Jurassic Park where they're sitting round, or even like the action sequences, just saying to the audience, like with the main road attack scene, no music from John Williams. We're just here for 8 or 10 minutes, and this is all that we're focusing on, is this one moment. We're not going to zoom around and go to other places. We're just going to focus on this one, bit of filmmaking, a real bit of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking in Rebirth, which I think clocks in at just over 2 hours, or 2 hours 10. I don't know the exact running time, but it's in that ballpark. And I definitely thought there were moments where he gave the chance for the characters to breathe, and you get to know them a little. I mean, perhaps not as well as it's done in Jurassic Park, like you were just describing. So I was pleased at that it wasn't all just action and exposition. Let's say, and that. I mean, Dominion is it's a kind of madcap chase film, really, isn't it? Across the world.
It is, yeah.
And, you might argue that whole sort of sequence where, they're on the motorbikes and they the bit that was shot in Malta, basically, is that even really necessary? I mean, the bit that always stuns me about that film is, and again, this comes from when you write these books, you speak to people, you found out the incredible effort that's gone into these scenes.
Exactly.
So my example there would be the dinosaur black market where, this kind of underground black market where you've got all these incredible animatronic dinosaurs on set. And of course, that's a great homage to the original dinosaurs and how they were sort of partly at least produced for the first movie. And it was great that they had a scene that you could use that. And then the kind of camera just sort of glides over them and you don't really see them that much. And I was like, oh my God, they sounded so incredible when they were described to me. And yet, I don't know, I guess if you pause to your DVD a lot, you can see them. But I felt like that scene could have been made a lot more of. But then it's a bit like, well, is that just clogging up the narrative? Is that being, I don't know. But the pacing of Dominion is a little, perhaps needed work on, I suppose. But, or maybe we just needed to get to the island. Again, it's another, well, it's not an island, is it? It's the valley.
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary. I'm just curious what you thought of Lewis Dodgson, who basically is one of my favorite characters from the books because he's spectacular as a villain in the Lost World book. And obviously they didn't do that version, and I kind of really had hoped that they would have done that version. It's pretty nasty. So maybe they just thought we can't do that.
I think he is still quite nasty in the film, but
and I love Campbell Scott. I must say I love Campbell Scott as an actor.
And I think he gives a performance that was quite surprising when I watched it, and that was in a good way. I was surprised by he feels like somebody who went really deep in that character, definitely. But it's a shame because from a fan's perspective, he's such a big part of all of Jurassic that you were kind of waiting for him to come back, and I don't know whether it hit emotionally or whether it would even resonate with anybody that wasn't a Jurassic Park fan, questioning why Ellie and Grant were so down on Dodgson, but by the time, they're all Dodgson, this, that, and the other. And you're like, but as an audience, we've seen the scene with Nedry. Most people will have forgotten that that's even Dodgson. And then we get to Dominion, and the only thing we see of him is in that this clip at the start of the film is his introduction. And you're like, well, why do we need to hate him? They talk about the seed and bias in seed, but I don't think it's driven home enough who he is before we finally meet him. And I think all the ideas are really rich in Dominion, but they don't hit emotionally as much as I was hoping for as a kind of culmination of 6 films, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it is a different tone. And I guess it had to be in a way because you can't recycle what they did in Jurassic Park. He did try and do something, getting the dinosaurs out into the world had its pros and cons, I think, as we've sort of alluded to. When dinosaurs are sort of stomping around a city, let's say, it's a different vibe than you're trapped on an island, there's nowhere to go. Though that said, I love the bit at the beginning of Dominion with the dinosaur in the open air cinema. And
but that was cut for the theatrical.
Well, yes, it was. Yeah. Or they kind of restored it, didn't they? In the end?
I think the extended is far better than from what they actually put into cinemas.
I wonder if that extended version had been the, let's say, original version, if that's what you want to call it, or the theatrical version. If the reviews would have been more positive. I mean,
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I think definitely the start, because it does. The end of Fallen Kingdom promises so much in terms of the dinosaurs being everywhere, and then it's sort of almost happened. We kind of take it for granted that it's happened by the time we get to Dominion, and it's just too many small little shots of it in the world. But when we go to new locations, which we do quite a lot in Dominion, there's no big, grand, sweeping landscape shots or where we can get a connection of scale or what people are doing with these dinosaurs. It feels like we're too focused on what's the next bit of the story. Let's get back to a medium shot of a character. Let's get back to talking. And it's just like, just give it a moment. I mean, when you take away the T-Rex bit at the start of the film, you don't actually see the T-Rex until nearly the end of the film, where it comes and finds the Giga in the forest. And so it's that grudge match that's set up at the end without the Cretaceous bit and without the T-Rex in the drive-in cinema. It just feels like, we need a T-Rex moment. So let's just put it
all
in.
I can say is you won't be disappointed with the T-Rex moment in Rebirth.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
Oh, you're making me more excited.
But you know what that is, right? You must know what that is.
Well, I know the river raft sequence,
and that is its sequence. But it's I mean, that's amazing. I'm so pleased they pulled that. I guess that's something we haven't talked about, and that is in the public domain now, so we can probably talk about it. That that was obviously a famous sequence from the first book that they storyboarded and were going to do, and then didn't and cut it. And thank God, because you wouldn't have been able to pull it off then with sort of however they would have done it, sort of animatronics or whatever. It just wouldn't have worked, not in the way it works now. So
I think there's that one shot in the new trailer of the T-Rex slowly walking into the water, and just the weight and dread that there's no running, and they're just these small people in a boat. And I spoke to somebody, Jack, he worked on the viral marketing campaign for all of the world films. And he said when he saw that, he said, that's my favourite shot maybe of the entire franchise. Just like that's even without seeing the film, just that moment just feels so Jurassic Park, just everything encompassing in that one moment of the T-Rex walking into the water.
Yeah, and you can't really call it fan service, even though probably most fans who know the books well would want that scene filmed, because it's completely, embedded in the film. It doesn't stick out. It's like, oh yeah, no, that works basically. I'm not going to say any more than that.
No.
I know you're going to dig that scene.
Yeah. I was wondering if David Koepp has any sort of traits from Jurassic Park and Lost World that he kind of brings forward into this new film. I'm thinking of, do you think he does have traits within his films that he likes to play with?
Well, he did say, again, I suppose this is going back to the island idea, but he likes those sort of contained in a bottle type stories. That's something that he's enjoyed doing. I mean, you have to go back through his entire canon to see how many times he's done that outside of the Jurassic movies. But I think humor, you can't forget even the sort of silly joke in the first Jurassic Park when the kids are up the tree, the sort of, do you think you saw us? But, they're silly little kids jokes, but they bring texture to the kids and that relationship with Alan Grant. Yeah, so I think he knows how to season humor in without turning it into a comedy. I think that works really well. It just humanizes people, because even in terrifying situations, there might be a moment that maybe you laugh out of relief because you're terrified, but there are moments that, just little moments of humor, I guess.
Yeah, my favorite line is from Jurassic Park is when Malcolm and John Hammond are talking, and Malcolm's broken his leg. John Hammond's like, well, all major theme parks have delays. And Ian Malcolm says, yeah, but when the Pirates of the Caribbean break down, the pirates don't eat the tourists. And that just, and it's the speed of which Koepp's dialogue, and for Jurassic Park and the Lost World, the way that Spielberg shoots it, people talking over the top of each other, people at conflict. He loves having people talking about conflict and not listening to each other, but talking. And that feels very 90s, like snappy, wisecracking dialogue that was very rife at the time. Now it feels like films want to make sure the audience knows everything and hear every single line. We need to have everybody speak without overlapping, without butting in on people. So yeah, I'm interested to see whether that makes a return in this film at all. Although that's not really Gareth's style.
No. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'll have to rewatch that again with that in mind to sort of see that. But yeah, I was pleased with the human interaction in it, let's say. Given it is quite a pacey piece of work as well. They're on a mission, ultimately. So, and then they're on a survival, a moment just they're desperate to survive. So, but I felt like there was just about enough moments for characters to breathe, but maybe not in, I think with Jurassic Park, the original, the action doesn't really start until what? Halfway or there? I don't know.
About an hour in.
So you do have
T-Rex
quite
attack,
a lot of ways to get to know the characters in that. I wouldn't say that happens here. The action does start fairly quickly. So it's not quite as skilled as Jurassic. But then, that will probably also comes down to Crichton as a novelist and building those characters and building that story. And sadly, he's no longer with us. So you're not going to get him to have any input on a future Jurassic story. But I guess the first one does have a sort of novel's pace on some level, which maybe the others didn't.
Do you think they complement each other well, Kep and Edwards, on this film?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Gareth just knows how to handle scale. There's no question about that. And Kep's good at writing big set pieces. He knows how to do that. Obviously, Spielberg's got to have had an input into those at some level, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, God, I obviously I had to ask them, are you going to come back for parts 2 and 3, assuming there are parts 2 and 3? What would that be? Parts 8 and 9, I suppose.
8 and 9, yeah.
Obviously, I mean, Kep said there'd been, like, he and Spielberg had talked about it, but they're in the middle of filming, or Spielberg's in the middle of filming this mysterious science fiction film, which Kep has written. Yeah. So that's what their focus is on now. But, they've obviously talked about it. I mean, clearly you don't go into launching one Jurassic without thinking about a couple of others.
No.
Whether they bring back characters, that will be interesting. It'd be interesting to know where it would go. I mean, we can talk more when you've seen it about that, let's say.
I'm interested. So I know bits about this film, obviously, from the trailers and stuff, but like, what is Universal's endgame with this new film? Like, is this launching a new series of films? I suppose if the box office is good, then yes. But I have no idea where this new trajectory is going, which is quite exciting as a fan.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Even at the end of the film, I wasn't sure, what would come next. Yeah, I was trying to figure that out while watching it. Well, given what they're talking about, where will this go afterwards? Because they can't go back to the islands again.
No,
know. So again, this is always, it's a bit like the James Bond conundrum now, where they box themselves in after killing Bond off in No Time to Die. It's like, well, where do Amazon go now? What do they do? And hopefully some smart, intelligent writer will come along with some great ideas. And whether that's David or anybody else, I'm not sure. I don't know whether Gareth would come back. I mean, I'd love him to. He's put a great stamp on the Jurassic franchise for sure, and I'm sure Universal would love to come back with the right script. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? I cannot tell where this will go. But that, as you say, that is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, finally, I suppose you could say with this one, you've broken away from Alan Grant universe, if that makes sense. Because Grant's shadow, I suppose, is across all of them on some level.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's referenced in like Fallen Kingdom. I don't think he is, but he's kind of the spiritual center of in terms of characters, I guess. It's a bit like with Star Wars when they kind of brought that back in. Yes, there were original characters coming back in, but in a way you're setting up new characters now. So it's like the universe the Star Wars universe isn't just about the Skywalker clan now, and here there are now other people in the Jurassic universe. I mean, we know there are, of course. There's just people in the world, but now the story can go in a completely different direction with different people. So that is exciting, I think.
Yeah. I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining me today. Your books are always sitting next to me when I've been doing these recordings, and they haven't left my coffee table for months. They're just amazing. And
thank you.
People that I speak to, and they send me little, like when I put up an episode and I've mentioned something in a show, they then send me little bits from your book and says, this is a little fuller discussion of what you were talking about. So they are being well loved by Jurassic Park fans. I think particularly the Jurassic Park 3 stuff. That was because that film didn't get the love.
No.
Like the first 2 films had those really good making of books.
But yeah, it's true. And I have to say that was from that first book. It's a bit like, because before I did the visual history for Jurassic Park, for the same publisher, I did one for Die Hard, which was started by another writer, and then he left the project and I kind of came on to finish it. Obviously you pay the most attention to Die Hard, the original movie, of course you do, but you've still got to give a bit of love to A Good Day to Die Hard, the 5th one, which I know and isn't as good as the first movie. We all know that, but you can't just write, well, this movie's terrible, because that doesn't work. And it's, it has good moments in it, even if the full product doesn't quite work as well as the original Die Hard. And it was the same with Jurassic Park 3. It was like, yes, we know it's not as good as Jurassic Park, but there are some great moments in Jurassic Park 3. And the sort of the writing history behind it was kind of fascinating.
More so than any other, I think. The kind of production history of that. When I spoke to Daniel Stephen, who's done the full Stuck on Sauna podcast about that, and it's the imagination. It's like, what could have been?
He was obsessed by Jurassic Park 3. Yeah. I remember speaking to him. But I mean, I will say as a little, shout out, Joe Johnston was amazing in terms of like the answers he gave me, the detail he gave me. He was very open and available to talk to, and that's a great start. Unfortunately, it was quite hard to get hold of some of those writers that had worked on some of those scripts.
I'm fascinated to know why, because those scripts don't exist for the Australian. I'm blanking on who he was, the Australian person.
I know who you're talking about. I'm also blanking on his name, but I know who you mean. Yeah, that one I scoured for, or tried to get hold of him. I worked for outlets in Australia. And I did say to one of them, "Do you have a contact with this guy?" And I didn't. No. And there was the guy that also wrote Che, the Soderbergh double movie. He wrote a draft. And then I remember getting, I think the breakthrough moment was Alexander Payne, who obviously did the kind of with Jim Taylor, his regular writing partner, who they did the sort of tidy up, I suppose you'd call it, the pass at it. Payne I've interviewed a number of times, and he's been always very eloquent to talk to, and he was very happy to talk, and he passed me on details for Jim, who I'd never interviewed before.
Sort of the handing of the baton from Crichton and Spielberg and Koepp, all on Joe Johnston's shoulders. And it's just like, right, here we go, and we're taking nobody else from the first two films are really going to be involved in terms of story, and I'm going to go off and do AI.
But you have to say, Johnston, like we were saying, Gareth's the perfect director now. Back then, he'd just done Jumanji. He was the right person to do it.
Yeah.
And, there are some stunning, the plane crash sequence near the beginning, for example.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's model work as well, which is what he knows so well. And that's why I think that's why that film visually stands up so well today, is because of the blending of the CGI and the practical effects of that film. They work really well together.
I mean, you talked about being a horror fan. I think the sequence towards the end with the pteranodons in the kind of fog, that is one of the best set pieces, let's call it, in any of the Jurassic movies. I mean, that works brilliant.
Yeah, and it has that, because it's in the novel as well, sort of, we wanted that scene in that film, and it has so much weight to it when the reveal that you're in a bird cage, and then the shadowy figure of the pteranodon walking across the walkway. It announces itself in the same way that almost like a T-Rex does in the first film, and it makes that moment. I think that's what I mean about kind of action sequences having their time, dedicating that big bit of the film and having a start, a beginning, middle and end of the action sequences as well. They move from the top of the canyon all the way down and then out. It feels it's got its own motivation and story, that little action sequence, which I really well.
Yeah, no, it's good that I'm glad that people appreciate the attention I paid to it, because you can't just ignore the third film because perhaps it wasn't quite as satisfying as the other two, but it still has lots and lots to talk about. And like you say, people hadn't really written about it in the same way as the first two films have been covered. So that was the sort of, in a way, that's the one you sort of take under your wing more, because you know that Jurassic fans will want to know, because there isn't the info out there. I mean, there was plenty of stuff out there on it, but perhaps didn't have a fantastic making of book in the way, as you said, the first two films did.
Yeah, kind of being able to read it in a narrative sense is really good.
I mean, I have to say, by the way, those two making of books that we were referring to, they are, never mind the fact that it's about Jurassic, but they are two of the best making of books I've ever read for any movie kind of insiders thing.
The access for them is incredible, and the kind of honesty as well, how they write and the interviews and stuff. It doesn't feel studio product at all.
no. I'm surprised they got to do them in that way. But, those books are still probably passed around on eBay or whatever. They're very valuable commodities.
I've got mine on my shelf very much from the time. Yeah. But is there any projects that you can tell us that you're working on at the moment?
I have finished a book. I don't know if it's been announced. I probably won't say just yet, but it's a very big movie. I'll say that much.
Okay.
And that's sort of been one that's kind of been in the works for a long time, and I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out, but it's a big one. I'll say that much. I'm a big director, so it doesn't involve dinosaurs.
No. And also, I was wondering where people can find you online or your writing.
Good question. Well, I'm freelance, so I write for a lot of different outlets. I used to write for Total Film, which was obviously a pretty well-known big film magazine. I expect that closed, unfortunately. I write for various places. South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. I do a lot of work for them. The National, which is a paper in the UAE, in the UK, The Independent, Metro, British cinematographer. I am interviewing John Matheson for Rebirth for that publication. So variety.
Amazing.
I'm not very prolific on social media, so don't bother looking.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been actually really fun just to talk about Rebirth, making me more excited, definitely.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
My huge thanks to James for that conversation, and I think, as all Jurassic fans know, his books are now indispensable for lots of us, and I really can't wait to get him back on the show so we can actually get into the nitty-gritty of Rebirth and all of our thoughts on it. For everybody going to see the film tonight, have an amazing time, and remember to let me know your thoughts of the film at Road to Rebirth Pod on Instagram, and email me your review if you want to at roadtorebirthpod@gmail.com. Next week, I'll be bringing you my interview with Matthew Clark, the lead graphic designer for Rebirth. It's not really about Rebirth, as we recorded it a little bit before the film came out. It's more to do with how you build a world in filmmaking, particularly looking at Jurassic Park, and the subtleties that film's production design does to make us believe that this is a fully fleshed out island and there are many, many exhibits and places that are unexplored on Isla Nublar. It's an incredible conversation. I don't think I've ever sat down with someone and discussed Jurassic Park in that way. It's truly not to be missed. But until next time, I'll just say thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.